to research, studying books in the Old Testament and New Testament, reading through the history, figuring out things with the stars and astronomy to pinpoint a date. And one of the denominations, they try to guess this date many times. I think it's the Methodists. Right? I think it's the Methodists or Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses. And they would bring a date after the date, and the date would come and go. And says, oh, no, by the way, it was not that date exactly. It was this other date. And they bring another date. And then the date would come and go, and nothing happens. And then he set another date. And they set over 20 dates. And they're still going at it. Not realizing that Christ in the Bible, he said, what? No one knows the time. It's so funny. Christ, he said it directly. Right? No one knows the time. Not even the angels. The time of his coming is only known by God alone. We, however, notice something that's very important. He's telling us, I don't want you to worry about the time. What I want you to worry about is being watchful. And you notice that the word watchful is repeated in today's gospel. If you were counting, 5 times. He says, but watch out for yourselves. Another time he says, take heed, watch, and pray, for you do not know what the time is. The 3rd time he says, it is a man who has left the country and is about to come at any time. And he asked the doorkeeper, the servant that's taking care of his house, to keep watch. Again, and then he finalizes today's reading and saying, and I say to you, I say to all, watch. You know, speaking of watch, after I completed my 40 days at the monastery, I went to one of my relatives' homes. And in the monastery, we had the blessing of praying a mass every single day. So I wanted to continue the tradition. So my family, where I used to be living with during my last a week or so, before coming back to the States, we used to live next to the Archangel Michael in Sheraton. So I got permission to go and pray there. So I would go. First time I went there, of course, I am used to liturgies that starts like 6 in the morning or very early in the morning, and it's usually me and Abouna and a couple deacons and a couple of monks, very small. And I pray in this huge cathedral, and the serving priest asked me to help him with the communion, giving the body. So he tells me, Father, you're going to be giving communion to the ladies. So I tell him, sure, Abouna. And then he comes to me and tells me, there are so many of them. Make sure you give small pieces. I say, sure, Abouna. And then he goes off. And then he comes back to me and says, make sure that the pieces are small. There are so many of them. So I go give communion. It was a 45-minute adventure. I think I give like 1,000 lady, 1,000 women communion. But just the fact that he came and he told me twice, make sure that the pieces are small, he kind of got my attention. This is what's happening today. The Lord Jesus is telling us, watch. 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 So, what is this thing that Jesus is telling us to watch out from? And how can we watch? St. Paul tells us, see then that you walk circumspectly, which means watchfully or carefully. You walk carefully. Not as fools, but as wise. Redeeming the time because the days are evil. Walk carefully, walk watchfully. So there's 2 ways of walking, St. Paul tells us. There's a way of walking like wisely, or walking foolishly. Let's talk a bit about this walking watchfully and what does that really mean. The first meaning of walking and watching, while watching, is watching out your senses. We, as human beings, we are blessed with very, very powerful senses: seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, and smelling. These are very powerful and they are very sensitive. And these senses have the ability to collect millions of information without even you realize it. And all this information you're taking in is going directly into your brain to be analyzed, and then it gets stored into your memory for later retrieval. You know, it's amazing, like when you be driving next to a freeway and you would smell a smell of one of the food from a restaurant nearby, your memory would take you back to when you first went to that restaurant or the friends you were with. Really amazing stuff. And this information that we take in, it does not just impact our brain, but it also impacts our hearts. Not in the physical sense of the heart, but in the symbolic or emotional sense. And what you take in will impact how you process things. And for example, if I take in good information, all the processing that happens in your head, all that you're going to care about in your heart will be good. Anything bad you take in, anything bad will be stored, it will impact your heart, it will impact your thoughts. There's a concept in computer science that says garbage in, garbage out. It's a concept saying if you have a machine and you store bad information, and then you use that machine to do some analysis on the data, you're going to get rubbish data, because the data that you fed it is not correct. And this is the same thing with us. So what does that really mean? It really means that we need to take care of our senses. We need to take care of what we see. You cannot be careless about the things you watch or the things you see and expect that is not going to have an impact on you. Anything that you see, anything that you watch will impact you, will impact your thoughts, will impact your feelings, will impact your desires. And Satan will use it for later retrieval to fight you with it. Watch your thoughts. Watch what you hear. Watch what you say. Because all these things are connected, and it connects to your heart. There's a great saying that says this: watch your thoughts, for they become words. Watch your words, for they become actions. Watch your actions, because they will become your habits. Watch your habits, because it's going to become your character. And watch your character, because it's going to be your destiny. Again, so you have to watch your thoughts, because your thoughts will impact what you say. Watch what you say, because it's going to impact what you do. Watch what you do, because it's going to turn into a habit. Watch your habit, because it's going to turn into your character. It's going to make you who you are. And watch your character, because it's going to be your destiny. It's going to define who you are as a human being. So true. You know, someone who lost their life to drugs, it probably just started as a thought. Let me just try. And then it went over to actions. And then went to a habit. And it became their destiny. Watch our senses. Watch and run for your lives from all the sources that can impact your senses. Guard them. You know, there's in Psalm 51, right, that says the Psalm of repentance. David says, let the walls of Jerusalem be built. Let the walls of Jerusalem. Jerusalem is a sacred, beautiful city. It's this most precious city. This is the human heart. Let the walls of Jerusalem be built. Let your senses, walls, be built. Watch what you see. Watch what you hear. Do not engage in any conversation that you know would impact your thoughts. Whether it's gossip, whether it's talking about lusts, whether it's whatever it is. Watch your ears. Watch your eyes. The second thing we have to be watchful for is watch your spirit. If we are going to grow in our knowledge and love for our God, we must be taking our spirituality seriously. We have to follow what the Bible and what the church says. The Holy Church teaches us how to live the Bible. Do you know what started first? Is it the church or the Bible? Who thinks that the Bible started first? Who thinks that the church started first? Who's still awake? It's the church that started first. The church is you. This gathering. This is what started first. And then the Bible was collected later. The church is how we live, teaches us how to live the Bible. And this church that we live in, we are so blessed because it's a church of 2,000 years. We're not just proud of the history. We are proud of the product of this history. We're not just fanatics, just proud that we are just Coptic Orthodox that lived through persecutions. Yes, this is great. But we are more proud of what this church has produced, what the church structure has produced. These fastings that church puts us through, the prayers that the church puts us through, it tells us how you live as a Christian. It tells us how to live the gospel. You know, the most people that I found in my personal interactions with people who are most appreciative of the church are two kinds of people. Are either the converts, those who were converted from a faith outside of Christianity, or someone who is Coptic but was deprived of the church and tasted the feeling of not attending church. These are the ones who greatly appreciate the church. Christianity, my friends, is hard work. Christianity is hard work. It requires work. It requires perseverance. It requires determination. To live a life for Christ requires us to push ourselves. We can't take our faith lightly. Christ said this by his own words. He says this: enter by the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction, and there are many who go in by it, because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life, and there are few who find it. Narrow is the gate. So in our living, there are two kinds of gates. There's a narrow gate and there's a wide gate. The wide gate, unfortunately, is the most popular gate. It's a gate of laziness. It's the gate of taking it easy. It's the gate of whatever I want, I will do. And many find this gate. Compare ourselves here with the numbers who are not inside the church. We are walking in the narrow gate. But the narrow gate, Christ says, leads to life. The narrow gate leads to life. It goes against our laziness. It goes against our carelessness. It requires you to watch what you see. It requires you to watch what you say. It requires you to watch what you hear. So when the church tells you to fast, for example, Wednesdays and Fridays, it is for you to help you. It's to help you for your growth. It teaches you to grow your free will. It teaches you how to be strong. Self-control is one of the fruits of the Spirit. You guys know what happens when someone puts a cast on their leg? Someone who breaks their legs, they put in a cast. And the cast gets placed on the leg for months. You know what happens when you take out the cast and put the feet or the leg that had the cast versus the feet that did not have the cast? What's the difference? The muscles. The one that had the cast, the muscles, they atrophy. It weakens. It dissolves. This is the same thing with our spirituality. If we do not take our spirituality seriously, if we do not exercise the Christian virtues, simple things as fasting and prayers, our spiritual muscles, going to have something called spiritual atrophy. We will be weakened. So, yes, It takes a lot of work. It requires us to be watchful. Having a watchful prayer life. Sometimes when we ask people, do you pray? Yeah, Abouna, I pray. When? Whenever I feel like it. What do you pray? From my heart. What does that mean? It looks nice, but it's very deceiving. Because, when you join the military, they put them in a very strict program. There's a program from when you need to wake up, a program when you need to sleep. There's a program for how to get dressed. There's even a program on how to put your hair. There's a program on how to behave. There's a program when to eat. There's a time when to sleep. There's just very strict rules. And you know what happens when you don't follow the rules? You get in major trouble. Why? Because we're talking about life and death. If you do not take these programs seriously, you're either going to get yourself killed or you're going to get your partners killed. St. Paul says this, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but we fight against principalities, against powers, against rulers of darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. We are in a spiritual war. And spiritual war can only be won if we take our spirituality seriously. It requires having a spiritual mentor, a father of confession, someone you sit with, someone you follow up with, someone who can give you a program and you follow it to the word, and you come back when you're struggling and you measure your growth. We are fighting Satan. Yesterday's gospel was very beautiful. It says, do not fear, little flock. It is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom of heaven. Our Lord Jesus Christ wants to give us heaven. But there are certain way of life we need to follow if we were to go to heaven. We need to be like Him. We need to be like Him if we were to enjoy eternity with Him. If we are not like Him, why would you want to spend eternity with Him? So He tells us you have to watch over your lives. You have to be careful. This laziness, this carelessness will impact you and will deprive you from me and from my kingdom. May God give us the power to be watchful over our senses, our eyes, our hearts, our ears, our tongue. May God give us the power and the wisdom to stand like soldiers in our spiritual struggle so that we may grow in His faith, in His knowledge, and more importantly, in His love. And glory be to God forever. Amen.
Oneye tochen omet mini es